misadventures in getting here. We got in a stairwell.
I understand.
For serious, so.
Welcome to Hamilton, by the way.
Thank you for the keynote, by the way.
Thanks. Like,
Thank you for coming.
this is fantastic. I'm glad you guys were all patient enough to sit here while I wandered around the building. So really, what I wanted to do, as much as I enjoyed giving the keynote, I wanted to do you guys' questions, because I think what's more important than, you have something?
Can you give me a quick breakdown?
Sure, I was just gonna, can you guys hear me in the back?
Yep.
All right, yeah.
Can I yank it?
Yeah, do it, go for it.
all the time.
He spent a lot of time setting up.
Well, I appreciate the effort.
Yeah.
So, yeah, our medium is interactive. I think our conferences should be as well. As much as I can say stuff at you, I think the really more important thing is to have a dialogue, right? And so, any questions, anything like that, if we run out of questions, I'm sure I can just talk for a while, but yeah, go for it.
I was wondering, specifically with regards to mechanics as a metaphor,
Right.
how could the old FF6 era turn-based combat system be used in the modern setting, since largely it's been rendered obsolete?
Interesting. That is a very specific question. So, if any of you didn't hear, and also to buy myself time to think while I reiterate the question, the question was, in regards specifically to mechanics as metaphor, how can the FF6 combat system be used in a modern setting since it's largely been rendered obsolete? I mean, this is a really good question. The question to me is, what I will actually turn around. What do you think the FF6 combat system says? Like, what does that action say to you?
The action of it says, you know your choices. These are the problems that you need to solve, and you now need to solve them in a specific time limit.
And what does that feel like to you?
It does feel somewhat hectic, and the individual battles do work. It basically an early Dark Souls.
Interesting. I don't know if I see FF6 as an early Dark Souls, but so to me, what it always feels like, right? Your early turn-based combat systems very often feels to me like it's right. We're talking back and forth. We're just using battle stuff, right? I think you could use it today to have your sort of dialogue-based game, but instead have your sort of argument back and forth, right? Your repost with your words. I think there's a lot of ways to use it, right? And even back in the day, we saw a lot of things. Do you guys all remember turning from a Dark Knight to a Paladin?
Yep.
Yeah. Right. I think that was a fantastic way to use that to turn expectations on its head. I maybe guys played Earthbound. Right.
It's on the Wii U for those who have it.
Oh yeah, it's true. Did it come out for yes?
No, not yet. I think it was only in Japan. Because Nintendo America's like, maybe we'll get in something they want, but nah. It's okay, there's emulators.
So,
kids who want some illegal video games.
So, for Earthbound, like, do you guys all remember the, I can't spoil this for everybody. The use of the pray command.
Yes.
Oh,
right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Have you played it?
I have not.
You should play it.
Yes,
You have to get fairly far into it, but you heard the reaction to everyone to what I said, the pray command, right? Fascinating, like, moment that made you reflect on the mechanics and turn your expectations on its head. I think you would get a kick out of it. But other questions?
Yes, let's talk about more about the education and games.
So that one was too specific. This one may not be specific enough.
I'm actually thinking about how you mentioned it in your talk, but it's more about how games can be used to better improve learning. For one thing, I have to say, first of all, thank you very much for creating extra credits. I think it's a great medium. I've seen some stuff on there that I have some controversy with, but
Sure.
For the most part, I agree a lot with what you have to say.
And so for all of you guys, right? I don't want anybody to agree or I just want dialogue, right?
Right.
If we can start the conversation,
Right.
I think it makes us all better. And so I am glad to hear that you don't agree with everything. 6 months later, there are some things that I don't agree with. But you were saying education.
Yeah. So I was thinking more in terms of how can games be more used in terms of you start talking about this, but what's your thoughts about how games can be more used to improve education? From getting away from the formal classroom environment,
Right.
like I hated it when I was in school.
So, the problem right now with games education, in my opinion, largely, is this idea of transference. Transference is this concept of, I saw some kids who were doing high-level math for World of Warcraft, for their World of Warcraft builds. You put a math test in front of them, couldn't do anything, right? Even though it was actually simpler math and versions of the math that they were doing anyway. And one of the problems we have right now amongst all of us, if you want to educate outside of the classroom setting, is just this change in perception to sort of communicate that there's something more here. And I think it's for all of us something that we need to do as consumers of this medium. And I think that probably everybody here in this room is already way on top of this. But we've sort of trained our audience, or as a member of the AAA industry, like I'm as guilty of this as anybody else. But for a long time, we trained our audience that this is just a pastime, right? This is just something for kids, and there's nothing you're going to get from it. And so for a lot of people, you go and start playing a game, and you just tune out, right? That's what you're there to do. And that's very often the expectation. And so you don't approach games the same way you would approach a book or a movie, seeing what more there is to find there, right? Reflecting on all the moments of metaphor. And I think to get from that transference, we have to sort of make that psychological shift as a consumer audience to realize that, yeah, this is the same thing I'm doing in my real life, right? Like, all the time I have people who, when I point out to them the decisions and the things they've done in games, they have this aha moment of, wait, so why am I not doing that in my life, right? And I think we just need to make that connection better. So that's where I would start. And I'm sure we'll get back to education a ton. So I'm going to go on at next question. Hey. God, there's so many.
We're here for an hour.
You're here. Well, you're here, right?
Yeah.
Pick somebody for me.
I'm gonna pick somebody?
Sure.
Okay, cool. I'm going to pick.
Right? Isn't this paralyzing?
Yeah, because it's close.
All right. Caution.
So a little more on that, the idea with the education stuff.
Right.
Looking at games like World of Warcraft, League of Legends, any really big competitive games, you find a lot of small groups of people doing all the math and all of the
Right.
theory crafting, as they call it, right? And so you don't get the majority of the player base involved in that sort of activity. So how do you go about making each person that plays the game get involved in that process?
Right, and this is some of the difficulty we have to overcome, because on the one hand, the easiest way is something that's going to make it a slightly less competitive game, because if things are more randomized and you have to do the theory crafting for your own equipment to some degree, then you're going to solve that, right? If there is no definitive best build, if when you kill a monster and it drops purple sword, right, your purple sword has semi-randomized attributes, then you have to actually figure out whether or not that purple sword is better than the other purple sword you were wielding. There's one way, but that level of randomization fights against our often competitive play, right?
As a counterpoint, though, something like Diablo, and sticking with Blizzard games, where you feel like that is so complicated that, I mean, I've got a tier math theory, it's not huge, but
Right.
I understand the math behind it, but it's still so complicated, it's way too hard to get into it.
Right, and so I think that there needs to be more, it's a complex game to design, but I think that there is a lot that you can do with what I would call intermediate level math, right? Your algebra. That we don't do in game design because either we intentionally obfuscate the systems, like you see for League of Legends, World of Warcraft, took them forever, and for a lot of systems they haven't even done it, they haven't released their underlying formulas, right? And so you have to do a great deal of work, not to figure out whether or not your equipment is good, but to just deconstruct through scientific method, through test, theorize, retest, right? To find out what that formula is. And what's remarkable is how close the consumer audience gets in almost every case. But as an individual, it's not even the math that I'm not willing to do. If I had the formula, I could totally plug things in and experiment with that, but it's this unwillingness to share the formula. Right? And so I think that as developers, if we feel comfortable enough sharing this formula, is great. The danger is that there's a lot of stuff that's sleight of hand that we do that looks like it's interesting or complicated, that
It really isn't.
or it's just straight up us cheating that we don't want to reveal, right? So it's finding that balance. And I do think, though, also communicating that, like League of Legends does a great deal to try and communicate to their audience, but they never formally try to communicate about the actual math, right? And so I think having that moment, having that 5-minute clip that you show every week or two about one of the guys on the staff talking about some of this stuff, you're not going to get 100% of the audience. That's not the goal, right? If we do it broad enough range, we'll get a lot of people.
Or you create a game like Minecraft where you can do anything you want or learn what you want.
Well, and Minecraft is a very, very interesting example, but I'm sure we're going to talk more about Minecraft. All right, so everybody raise your hands. So I'm not biased by the people I saw already up. All right, blue hat.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
I'm going to be graduating soon with my Bachelor of Arts in English. I just want to know, what advice do you have for someone who wants to get into video games through writing?
Right, so, and actually I think the dialogue is great. Go for it.
Okay, there's two great free engines that are free. One, there's a thing called Twine. Twine allows you to make games that are in browser that you can code up anywhere and people can play. And they're really easy to code and they're all text-based. There's also an engine called Ren'Py, which is also free, which makes visual novels like Christine Love's Analog a Hate Story or Katawa Shoujo, and plenty of other games you can play. I'm currently working in Ren'Py right now as well. They require a little bit of Python knowledge, but not much. For pretty much anything you can learn on a Wikipedia page in 7 days at most. Anything past that, it's all dialogue. It's all you writing things and telling a picture to move from left to right and out of the scene. And that's a great way to, those are some great places to start.
It
Could be almost no code if you really. But it also
Twine
could be-
especially
What-
is entirely visual.
What about just signing on to existing mod projects as a writer?
Right, so there's a lot of this stuff. So the first thing I have to warn you is, and I'll try and be totally honest with you, it is difficult to get into the industry as a writer, right? Because that's usually not what we have as a junior level position, and many places still like people who have experience in TV or film or something else. I think this is foolish. I think it's changing. I wouldn't discourage you at all. Do we have dry erase markers, by the way? Like, do we have a marker for this board?
I can ask.
Somebody in this room, because gamers are infinitely resourceful. Somebody in this room.
You got a piece of paper back there, just.
We got a guy in the front digging
I
through
don't
his
have
bag.
a pen, and I want to make it big enough that people can see. Sharpie might work. Sharpie might work. Oh, dude has. I have never, like, I asked for the randomest things to write this box, and I've never failed, right? One time I needed a 4-way USB splitter, and it was just like, right here. So, for all of you who are, how many of you guys are in the process of trying to enter the industry? We got a couple of you guys. For any of you guys who are interested, I highly recommend, you're gonna have to deal with my horrible handwriting. There's a site called Game Dev Map. If you haven't seen it before, I would highly recommend it. It has a list of pretty much every developer, large and small. It's not quite as exhaustive as I would like it to be, but it's an excellent place to start. And especially if you want to be something like a writer, I would say just go apply every single place you can find, whether or not they have a writing position open, right? And especially for any of you guys who are entering the industry, a lot of the things we'll say requires 1 to 2 years of experience, requires 1 to 2 titles shipped, anything like that, ignore it. I'm not totally serious. Like, I have seen plenty of people just out of college get those positions, and really it's just a way for us to cut down the volume of people who send us stuff. But I've seen plenty of more talented college grads beat out people who have a year or 2 of experience in the industry. And did you acquire? I'll take that one too.
I actually take this back to ConCon.
Yeah, go for it.
This guy's been working so hard. Give him a break. Let me
And while he's gone, we should actually conspire and figure out something that I can ask for.
Water, get water from it.
Maybe elephant.
There we go. I like
A
it.
midget that does Iggy Pop impressions.
I once asked for a man's name for a perfume, and someone managed that one. So other tax enforcers as well. Anybody? By the way, we should when he comes back, I would like to give a round of applause to the people who volunteer and run this thing. Because,
Yeah.
like, let's wait for him to come back because I would hate for him to also but none of these things would happen without the dudes in blue shirts. So, back to question at hand. So A, apply to everything because you may not, to be as realistic as possible, you may not get the job you want as your first job. It will be much easier after you have one job on your resume though.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Your hard work and like just volunteering for this thing is awesome, and I was just telling them these things wouldn't run without you guys. So I'm sorry that,
It really wasn't bad.
but I just want to say thanks.
You were easy. Last year I had to run all the way to the mall to get a cable.
We haven't finished this panel yet. So, yes, back to question at hand. It'll be much easier to get your second job than your first. So, everybody changes jobs all the time. Don't worry about getting into a position and 6 months into it and starting applying to every place again while you're accruing experience. Other things as a writer. A, really look carefully at video game writing. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of current lit degrees and that sort of thing don't examine game writing. So they don't teach you stuff like, one of the hardest things is voice standards, right? You get maybe 2 syllables, chatter lines that are like maybe 3 seconds long that the player's going to hear like 40 times. Like, for all you guys, RTS unit acknowledgements are one of the most
Yes.
right? And you wouldn't think about it, right? I guess as a player, that doesn't seem like that hard, but finding something that's not irritating, that tells you the information that you need, and it takes like half a second, is one of the biggest challenges out there. So, right, think through those things. Look for the unique areas that show you understand game writing and all the challenges that are going to be in game writing, and not just are a good writer, because that's the first step. But that's not going to separate you out from all the other people who apply to this. Beyond that, if you're really serious, did you just graduate?
No, I'm close to graduating. I just need one more course to take.
It's a little late this summer. Normally I recommend internships are one of the best ways to get into game companies. So for any of you guys who are still in college and looking to do this, go for internships. It's too bad Star Wars is not anyone. Everyone I ever knew who wrote anything ever was employed on Star Wars. But let's see. GDC. FaceTime with people, so that way, if you can find somebody who's going to take your resume and put it in the not student stack, it helps a great deal. Because right, all these companies are flooded out. Like, I am actively not hiring and finally just took our webpage down because all the work I get is just from people who already know me in the industry, and I still get like probably 30 plus resumes a week, right? And major companies, it's an even bigger flow. So go to GDC and spend some time getting to just talk to developers there, and don't worry about asking them, hey, would you be willing to pass along my resume, right? Because that's going to help you a great deal, just separate out from everybody else there. Beyond that, again, it's a little bit late, but if you have, you know what you can acquire? Air conditioning. The other things in terms of getting into the games industry, if you have something that will really separate you out, like if you're in college, if you get a game in one of the award ceremonies like IGF, IGC, Indiecade, Serious Games Summit, any of that sort of thing, right? That's something that we all recognize and gives us a way to separate you out. Or if you make a Flash game, put it on Congregate, right? And 100,000 people look at it, that's the first bullet point, like under the first thing in the resume, right? You go your objective line or whatever, and then game name, 100,000 views, right? Because that'll show us that you've gone through this process, that you have something to clearly offer, because we're really bad at vetting people. Like, to be totally honest with you,
Yeah.
HR is a mess in the games industry.
You know,
How about
That's
networking, because there's a panel actually gonna be on networking, but a lot of times people are working on projects with each other, and then at these kinds of events, people start getting experience with helping everybody out,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden your resume starts getting built, and that really stands out when you bring it to the inept HR people.
Yeah, well, and in terms of getting projects done, I mean, as we talked about, it is important that you have a couple of projects on the resume, and I don't know if your degree allowed you to create those during college. I wouldn't let it stop you, because this is the other thing, right? You apply to a place, they reject you, or don't even answer you back, which is gonna happen the majority of the time. Apply to them in 3 months, because they're not gonna remember, as tragic as it is, they are not gonna remember you in 3 months. So feel free to apply now while you don't have anything to get on your resume, and apply in 3 months again when you have some projects, if you don't have something else by then.
What do you mean allow?
What do you mean? What?
Like, I'm sorry, just a quick thing, what do you mean not allow you to?
Some colleges take intellectual rights.
Oh, and not, I more meant actually, even more than that, is just the,
Workload?
yeah, that it may have been prohibitive, that you may have, at this point in your career, right, like if you haven't had any class space to do it, and you're 1 credit from graduating, it's probably not enough time to go find a team to make it happen. You can, for the rest of you guys who aren't as far along, like you have plenty of opportunities to make it happen, and I think that sort of initiative shows a lot to game companies. It's really hot.
Break a window and check the window. Send the bill to the back.
But maybe some of the other.
I think this is a wise call.
I'm gonna see if they can turn the heat down a bit. See if they can do
Heat stroke is, like, I'm dying here and some of you guys are wearing robes, so. But, all right, I saw your hand, and then I'll get somebody else, so go for it.
Okay, mine's just a simple one. What game schools do you recommend?
Whoa. That's a tough one.
DigiPen, obviously, because you teach there.
And so, DigiPen is a complex one. I think DigiPen is really good. So I'll be frank with all you guys, right? Like, I think DigiPen is one of the best out there. It's still not perfect by a very long shot, right? We are still learning to teach, especially for game design. DigiPen is amazing for every program. But in terms of game design, we're still figuring out how to teach this. It's really tough. I went for my master's, I went to Carnegie Mellon. I think Carnegie Mellon is fantastic because Jesse teaches there, and I mean, if you guys don't know, Jesse Shell. Jesse Shell was my first game design teacher, and Jesse is just, I mean, he is one of the best communicators and just a genius, right? He's just really good. And if you haven't, Art of Game Design is a fantastic book to read. Other schools to think about, USC, it has an excellent program. Let's see, where else? Guildhall used to. I don't know where they're at nowadays. God, it's actually hard. Like, if you're really dedicated to spending only 2 years on it, I'd say Vancouver Film School, but I think that 2 years is rough. I don't think that a 2-year program is enough to teach the just range of skills you need. But beyond that, I mean, I think that there are plenty of, I mean, my bachelor's is in classics, right? Like, I think that you can get into the industry without having to go to game school. Like, as much as I teach it already, I think that so long as you're considering these issues, so long as you're trying to build stuff over there and continually grappling with the problems that our medium presents, I think you'd be fine. And I talk to everyone I know has a weird path into the games industry, and it may be in part because game schools didn't exist, but I also think it's in part because maybe it's just my bias, but especially for designers and writers and probably artists. Maybe not quite as much programmers, although I think so too. Like, having a other outside of game skill set to draw on allows us to create the best things, right? And so, any like top tier school will do. Like, as cheesy as it sounds, it's follow your passion, right? Like, learn the thing that you really care about, and then figure out why it's amazing for a game company to hire, right? Like, I know 2 people who are hired as economists for gaming analytics. No one is hired as a psychologist for that, right? And so there's a lot of ways that you can use anything. So I would say that top 3 game schools: Carnegie Mellon, USC, DigiPen, right? But don't think like that's the only option.
Are all of those American schools?
Except for Vegas. Yeah, I mean, they all have overseas branches as well.
I'm
Except
like,
for
yeah, like just any Canadian ones, like I'm not really interested in going to a game, anything, but just here. If you're looking for a Canadian school, Sharon just getting into the
Yeah, Shirt and Hummer,
their program isn't started.
and Hummer has a very good process.
And here,
Keep that in mind.
it's awesome to be jumping in at a game design school that is just starting, but right, DigiPen has been doing it now for 7 years as a game design school and has some really, really solid people with a lot of industry experience, and we are doing it wrong, right? We're doing it the best that we can figure out how to do it right now, but I will tell you personally, right, like every year, I just have epiphany moments about how much better we could do teaching game design. So I don't know that many Canadian schools that have a long-established program. The easiest way to do it is really just go look up IGF, go look up Indiecade, see which schools are taking out awards. That's really the easiest way to do it. Do you guys know, are there any game awards given in Canada that are like specifically for only Canadian groups?
No, we have like our jams and stuff. We have a lot of game jams that happen around here, and then we have our arcades, like our arcade showcases, like TO Jam and like Global Game Jam, and those showcases, and then we have people like from Ubisoft and Scouts and stuff down there. And then we have like the IGA chapter that's here as well.
Yeah.
Those like communities and stuff.
It's too bad that there's nothing that's really scenic quality. But, on game schools, we'll get back to it. I saw your hand forever, so go for it.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciated what you said in your talk about the power of agency in games, and being able to take an active role in creating and directing a story. That's something I relate to a lot. I personally experienced. Actually, maybe I'll skip that for now and go right to what I really wanted to say was I appreciate that you addressed the issue of inequality when it comes to agency in games, but by showing the infamous Ebony ads. Unfortunately, although I think the industry's changing a lot, I think there's a problem that things aren't equal in terms of who gets to be the subject in games and who is the object. I think that there's some great progress being made. I've heard people, for example, on the Bioware social network, I have a friend who talked about how much it meant to him to be able to play the Dragon Age games and to be able to play a character who was gay and a hero. So my question is, unfortunately, I've sometimes come across in online discussions people who are very resistant to opening up games for more people to be able to take the role of the subject.
It bothers me immensely. Like this is, so to be honest with all you guys, I've been trying for like 3 months to write the fake gamer girl episode. No, it ends up just being vitriol, right? Like the entire time is just like, how stupid can you be? And so I think that there is that very vocal segment of our audience which, for some reason, has convinced AAA that, I mean, I hear all the time that you can't release AAA game with a female protagonist, right? I've heard that with female protagonists. And I think it is starting to change. I mean, in terms of racial inequality, we're terrible, right? In terms of gender options, like, you know what I just found? For my own research, and I might actually end up doing an extra credits episode about it, I just started looking into hidden object games, and like 100% of the protagonists are female, and they're like, the storylines are all, I mean, well, there are mysteries, but they all have emotive moments. And so, like, it's not like it can't be done, and not like there's not an enormous audience there, right? Like, I think that they prove that that audience does definitively exist, right? Like, it is just a lie that people won't buy these games. how we change that, I mean, it's something that I honestly need to put more thought into, because like, I'm working on the development side, obviously, like don't reward those sort of games, and I'm working with people to make sure that we approach things a little bit more sensitively, and perhaps equally importantly for the industry, tools have gotten to the point where it's actually not incredibly more expensive to have a multiple protagonist, depending on the type of game. But then there's the community issue, right? Like there is especially on the gender, right? There's a level of misogyny that I do not understand, and what makes me really like. The problem is, I don't know how to reason, right? Because it's the same people who are like, I wish I could get a gamer girlfriend. I wish more girls play games. Big gamer girls. So, I mean, I think that it's a fundamental insecurity, and I think it's an insecurity also bred into our society. And I really think that events like this actually help a great deal. I think that just all of us interacting and showing each other that we're all just human, right? And that moment where you can engage someone in a conversation and they can't any longer just be on the other side of the screen assuming you're something you're not, has immense value. But that's one that I wish I had a better answer for, and I get lost in anger when going through it, and so I have not found the solution I don't yet. But it's a question that we're slowly resolving, actually. Like, Microsoft's actually done a ton of stuff to make, for all their bad presence, all the way they completely bombed E3. Like, I don't know how you can spend tens of millions of dollars on a precedent and like do it that poorly. And I don't know how you can leak that much to Sony, because like Sony clearly had all of their bullet points. Let me read you your bullet points, but better. But for all that, I mean, they've actually put a lot of work this time around into finding ways to help ameliorate some of those issues, because they didn't design for it at all when Xbox Live the first time came out. They didn't even think about it, right? And we were just kind of sort of running off that system. I don't know if their segregation of the community, which they're going to try to do, is the correct answer. But they're at least taking proactive steps and thinking about it, right? We've got companies, platform owners, thinking about this issue, so the good side is it's huge. But
did you say they're doing women-only spaces for video games?
No, but
that'd be a good idea.
they're doing. Although I do feel like safe spaces might be a positive thing at times. Their system right now functions basically where if you get enough like downvotes, if you are a horrible enough human being, you will get to play only with other horrible human beings. And wade through your sewage together. And no one else has to deal with it.
No, because the problem with that is that doesn't encourage people to become not horrible human beings. They just continue to be horrible human beings. And I think that
they can get upgraded out of the
no, I think it's permanent. And what? You're getting outvoted by horrible human beings, right?
It's legal. Well, the good human beings can actually look and see if you're still a horrible human being, and then if you want to be a horrible human being, then you get upgraded.
So the
problem is that creates like a hierarchy of like, oh, we're looking down upon you.
And you're not going to end up interacting with people in the upper tiers. And it does have some positives, right? Like it means that your kid or whatever is not going to jump on their game of Call of Duty and hear all sorts of KKK nonsense. Right?
Your kid should not be on Call of Duty in the first place, mind you.
But there will be some. But on the other hand, this is exactly how things like the KKK kind of exist, right? It's an insular community which reinforces itself. And so what I'm worried about is you turn unpleasantness to the worst slag pit ever, right? And then the rest of us have, hopefully, a much better experience. And as a community, we sort of grow, and that that portion that's segmented off becomes a smaller and smaller section of the overall community because the community is now much more welcoming to the average person.
Or the opposite happens and then it's all gone odd.
Right. But I have to have faith, right? Like, that's what I have to believe. I have to believe there's more of us out there than the people who want to. But I think it's all just misdirected rage, right? Like, I don't think it's
It's a boys club mentality.
well, it's more than that though. It's this. I think other things are wrong in a lot of those people's lives, and this is the only place where they have.
Right.
But anyway, I can go on for this forever. There's plenty of other topics. Let's see. Go for it.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I remember like back when in the aesthetics of design video, you mentioned like there were the core 8, and then you talked about competition, but you also mentioned like you had some other ones, and I was wondering what are those other aesthetics you follow?
Oh god, so this is something I'm revamping continuously. I think that there are a couple others. I think mastery is one of them, because I think that there are times that we play, when I talk about mastery, I think there are times that we play for the act of getting better, right? As human beings, right? Like, we like improving at things, and sometimes it doesn't really matter what it is. If you've ever worked like a totally boring job, or like washing dishes, or like putting a sprocket in a thing, you make it more engaging for yourself by deciding to be the best sprocket in things. And there are some games that the core aesthetic we go for is that sense of personal improvement, right? Outside of the game, that I as a human being improve, not I as a game character improve. Let's see, what else? There were a couple of others, but I'm not as confident on them any longer. For a long time we kicked around whether or not your like kinesthetic experience was a separate one from your sense pleasure experience. I'm not sure it's true. I'm not sure it's not true.
Publicize for James.
So fundamentally, I'm not sure that. I think that there's an extension of the sense pleasure experience for, you know, that rush you get when you're like, when you high jump, right? When you do that crazy, like, it feels good to double jump around that character who just leaps like he's on the moon, right? And there's something like weirdly kinesthetic about that, like that right feeling jump feels good. There are some games you play because it's fun to do that jump, right? It's fun to be able to slide, dive, roll, double gun, shoot, right? So I'm not sure that's different than sense pleasure. I'm not sure it's not. That's what I'm working with. It was awesome, whatever it was.
Nostalgia critics here. That's Doug, all right.
By the way, a couple of things. I don't know when this is supposed to end. I'm happy to go until they kick us out of the room. If you are dying, though, just leave. Oh, could I actually get water? Yeah. Sure. Fantastic. Thank you. I'm tempted to. I'm actually pretty mad.
Nobody pull a water bottle out.
Let me die up here.
Give me water.
All right. I see you very adamantly holding a hand. Feel for it.
Okay. So you talked a bit about ways to get into the industry.
How did you get out?
Wait for that.
So, what advice, I guess, would you give specifically to people who are trying to start their own studio, per se?
Right. How many guys want to start your own indie studio? That's as many as want to be in the industry. That's fantastic. So, as far as starting your own indie studio, I see you got this recorded, so we're probably going to release sort of wait 3 episodes. I think there's an entire episode on how to build an indie game studio, and I think that would be better than anything I could say here. main caveats are really scope. Make sure your projects start small. Make sure you understand that your first project is probably not going to be profitable, even if people really like it, right? Even if you get a lot of press, it's probably not going to be profitable, so make sure you can survive in the second one. And if you're working with more than one person, having a lawyer at the company is such a I've gone down both roads, and one is freaking worse than the other. And more than $300 worth, and that's about a lawyer to form the company cost. What else? Also, make sure that you are, you've heard me say it a lot, but make sure you're testing early enough, because one of the things that I see a lot of studios do is start building out content. And you don't want to start building out your levels when you might change your mechanics, right? But building out levels feels like you're building out games. And so it's a comedy. That's even better. But yes, really, I will leave it at that, and then seriously, it's like 2 episodes down the line, which is how to start your indie studio.
Wait, sorry, I just want to plug something here on that. There's a place called Bento Miso that's in downtown Toronto where there's a lot of developers that go there, and every 2 weeks they have something called Games with Friends. So if you want to know other indie developers in the GTA area, well, Southern Ontario area, and that is a great place to go because you will meet a lot of people, you can talk to a lot of people, and things like that. So.
There's a lot happening here.
We're good about that.
So, I haven't seen your hand up for a while. Go for it.
I have 2 questions. The first one is, what if you want to be a video game producer? Like you hear a lot, you're talking to game designers, go to game design school. What if you want to be a video game producer?
A video game production, think of a video game producer as a manager. Like, think of it as manager / cheerleader. You're pretty dead on, right? So, just anything that will require you those skills. I highly recommend cheerleader.
Okay. Cheerleader, it's fine. And my second question is, my previous job was I worked trying to help with engineering education.
Okay.
Basically, I helped I helped first years do the math that they were going through and kind of leading a camp with that. And something that I learned just by doing research on it is teaching is the best form of learning. How could games kind of fill in that gap?
Because I completely agree, right? Half the reason that I teach is selfish, right? Half the reason I teach is as far as doing it, I mean, there's lots of mentorship roles. I mean, anybody who's playing MMO at some point has, reached down to somebody who's not as experienced on it and shown them the ropes, right? We do this a lot in games. We would just have to put that in educational setting. Right? How awesome would it be to be able to incentivize that as well? Like, did you guys ever play Toontown? Yeah, but Toontown had one of the best intro modes, but they gave essentially quest rewards for completing the quest with a level 1 player. And so it actually really got a lot of and somebody else got this room after this?
Yeah, so you got about 5 minutes now.
Okay. But, alright, we got a ton of questions. I'll also try and sit outside for a little bit, or we can move to the hotel lobby and just camp the hotel lobby for as long as alright, go for it.
I agree with a lot of your ideas you had. And I think a lot of other people in this world would love to hear them and agree with them. So I'm thinking a really good strategy is to contact machinima and inform them of your ideas.
Unfortunately, my contract with PATV sort of prevents that. But if you haven't gone and seen, like, they've expressed a fair amount of it on extra credits, and hopefully there's a lot more years of expressing more of that.
I have a question that relates to that.
Yeah,
I was going to ask, are there going to ever be translations? Because I want that Brazil episode to be in like Portuguese and Spanish.
We've tried, and for a while they were actually Eurogamer was translating into Portuguese, and like it's been really hard to keep people who want to translate on a regular basis. I think. How many of you guys use our YouTube stream? Not the Penny Arcade YouTube stream, but like the Extra Credits one. Are there translations on some of those episodes?
I don't pay attention to it.
Because there were, then
In
there
my experience,
were,
there hasn't been any.
Alright, if you got a card or something, give it to me afterwards, and anybody who would like translations, we would love translations, we just like don't have the time or resources to actually manage them, And so anybody who wants to, it would be awesome to have more languages out there. All right, so let's do lightning round of as many questions as I can get in before they phase out. So raise your hands if you want a question. Yes, go.
Can you say anything about the indie fund that you have and how it
Yes, so they're coming out with a letter in like 2 weeks. Fundamentally, they've not wanted to talk about it because they want to focus on development. It's killing my soul because I'm like, we haven't shown that we've done anything with this money. They changed their initial topic because it was too overscoped and I knew it. And but I let them figure that out. And so they changed their initial thing. They've got another new game, which is pretty cool, which I don't want to say anything until the letter comes out, but if you like gave it to the fund or whatever, they will be mailing a letter relatively soon. And anybody who gave it to the fund, you guys can post it wherever, so like let the world know. Yes?
What's the biggest threat facing the design scene right now, and how do we avoid it?
The biggest threat is just being too cool for school. Like,
honestly, I know some people don't like that, yeah.
The indie community is a scene, and I think scenes are in some ways inherently isolating games. See you, go.
How's Allison's arm doing?
She's doing awesome, and I will let you guys in on a secret, which I'm going to ask you not to actually share with the world. She won't be back for the regular series in the immediate future, but she is coming back for a couple episodes, a couple of special episodes that we get coming up in, I think, September. And she's doing well. All right, let's keep going. Yes,
Should I like bleep that or?
Quick, pertaining to your last episode and a bit of a personal question, what advice do you have to somebody who has an insanely complicated life, trying to do their own project and game?
Okay, so for me, I actually build 15 minutes a day into my schedule to play a game I've never played before. That's me as a designer, right? We all have to figure out what works for us, but I think as adults or whatever,
Time management.
it is completely acceptable to schedule gaming into your game. I had to, otherwise I would just miss out on an orbit, right? All right, but yes.
Last one.
Two short questions. How is Attack of the Friday Monsters, and how is your Rocket Hub campaign going?
Rocket Hub campaign is going really good. We're at, I think, 43K. I'm just putting up some new awards. Jesse Shell is actually signing a bunch of his decks of cards for us, and the guys who do Magicians, the Korean language, or the Learn Korean through playing pen and paper RPG guys and stuff. We've got a couple others. I think the guys from Slytherin are putting up some of their historical games. What else? And as far as Attack of the Friday Monsters, I don't know yet. I don't know. I thought you were going to find out for your flight. So I had to work. I got it. It's downloaded. Haven't touched it. Though my Steam library looks a lot like that too. All right, let's all gather there.